Does your company have a good wellness program? See how it stacks up against the healthiest employers of Indiana and across the country. Visit us online at healthiestemployers.com to join the community and start your application today.
If you build it, they will ride it, especially when it comes to a bus rapid transit system, which is secondary to a rail line. It is the precursor to rail coming on board. If it's more frequent and faster, individuals will ride it because it also breaks down the barriers. It is that bridge of connectivity for jobs, education, amenities.
The woman driving Indiana's largest mass transit system, Inez Evans, on the launch of the Red Line rapid bus transit service in Indianapolis. On the job for 2 years now, she's Indigo's first minority woman to run the agency, which includes a fleet of more than 200 vehicles, 9 million bus trips every year, and more than 800 employees. What makes Inez Evans tick? Well, she started in transit as a customer service rep 25 years ago with no college degree.
I can be a little kooky and a little crazy sometimes. I love fried chicken. Put a little hot sauce on it, and you're right on time. Barbecue. I'm from Texas, so what can I say? I love to sing.
It's been quite a ride for Inez Evans, a journey that started on a military base in Virginia, where she was born, with stops in New York to nurture her singing talents, California, where she piloted public transportation for 43 million customers, and now Indianapolis, where she's at the wheel at Indigo. We're jumping on board with Inez Evans in this week's edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. Hello and welcome to the Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC. I'm Gary Dick. Well, you could describe Inez Evans' path to piloting Indiana's largest mass transit system as a bit unorthodox. She started as a customer service rep in the early 90s with no college degree, worked her way up, got her bachelor's degree, and eventually earned an MBA. Evans' last stop before Indy, serving as COO for the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, where she led some 1,900 employees and oversaw the maintenance of nearly 700 vehicles. But there's a lot more to Inez Evans, including her family's deep military roots, her knack for bringing communities together, and her hidden talents for singing and bowling. I'm pleased to be joined this week on the podcast by Indigo President and CEO Inez Evans. Inez, I know I had you on the show a few months ago. Haven't seen you since then. It's great to have you join me on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Gary. I'm so pleased and honored to be with you today.
How's the public transportation business? You know, all businesses, no matter the shape or size, certainly been impacted by the pandemic. How about public transportation? No doubt this has been a challenging, last 18 months or so.
Public transportation in Indianapolis and across the nation, we've all had to adapt and pivot quite a bit. With COVID, we had to figure out how to continue to provide safe, reliable services to our community. We installed some barriers for our operators. We're getting ready to install UV sanitation technology on our buses that will circulate and kill bacteria and virus airborne things in the air. So that's happening. But ridership is down. But I will say Indianapolis is on the higher end of the spectrum. Our ridership is about 50 to 60% of what it was before COVID, where some transit agencies across the country are down 60% and, are struggling with the decision on whether or not to stay going, to be honest.
Yeah. How bad did it get during the height of the pandemic? Because I can remember driving downtown, and obviously it was like a ghost town. There weren't, businesses were shuttered. There just wasn't a lot going on. How significant was the impact on Indigo?
I think what we found that was significant for us is that we received a number of calls from the mayor's office, city council, other major employers who said, Indigo, please keep running. We need to get our essential workers to work, and you're our way to do so. So organizations like FedEx, the airport, grocery stores, hospitals, things of that nature, they were still running, and we were the entity that was getting those folks there. So we saw that about 5 to 6,000 people a day, even through the pandemic, needed to be able to get to where they needed to go.
I think you touched on part of the answer to this question, but why, in your view, why is public transportation so important? You know, it's been an issue that has been somewhat of a hot button issue here in Indianapolis and central Indiana for a long time. Other cities around the country, it's, just part of, a way of life. Why is, in your view, public transportation so important to a city like Indianapolis?
Well, Indianapolis is transforming. It's growing. Look at what's happening downtown. Let's look at what's happening in Broad Ripple, Fountain Square, and other areas. People are choosing a more greener way of life, and they're choosing not to own cars as much as they used to. There was a recent article in the Bloomberg magazine that showed that Indianapolis is leading in some areas by going from a 2-car family down to a single car family. We believe transportation options that are getting better for this city are helping to make those choices for individuals. But let's look at the community that we serve. 70% of the individuals that we serve don't have cars. They are persons of color. They make less than $35,000 a year. And so when you look at the cost of maintaining a car, between the car itself, car insurance, car repairs, that can range up to upwards of $6,000 to $9,000 a year for a person. And I can tell you our public transportation system is a lot cheaper than that. So we're able to make that connection for people in the community so they can still have viable jobs, get to education, get to doctor's appointments. That's where we come in, where the people, I've been riding public transportation since I was 5 years old in New York City, on the public bus system and the public subway. So it's in my blood, and we're going to just continue to provide everything we can to make sure we keep moving the city forward.
You came to Indianapolis in 2019. And in fact, as we were just talking before we started the podcast, it was maybe a couple of weeks later, cut the ribbon on the first phase of Indy Connect, $1 billion plus plan, bus rapid transit. Phase 1, the red line, is now complete. Talk about the future of mass transit here. Certainly a lot of people in the business community have been staunch supporters of mass transit. They talk about workforce and the ability to get people to jobs and the other advantages that they feel exist. There are other people on the other side who are very passionately opposed to it. As you make the case for this continuing expansion of bus rapid transit in Indianapolis, what's the argument? What's your case for saying, hey, this is not only the right decision, this is a decision that's going to have a positive impact on the region?
Well, it goes back to what I said earlier about the community that we're serving, the amount of infrastructure improvements that, it's not just about a bus. I know I run the bus company, but Indigo is more than just the buses. Let's think about the mass amount of funding that we're putting forth towards infrastructure improvements that are helping to serve all of Indianapolis, even those of you who still use your cars. Yes, those paved roads, those new signals, those sidewalks that we're putting in, that goes to it. Not everyone, as I said before, can afford that car. And by having a better mass transit system that is more frequent, allows more flexibility for our community. And then let's look at the attractiveness of our city. It's been proven and said that when you have a robust transportation infrastructure, businesses will come, your home values will rise. And let's look at the infrastructure improvements that have already happened and will happen along the corridors that Indigo is investing in. We have companies like Cook Manufacturing who have made a commitment to build a manufacturing plant right on the Purple Line, as well as other hospital facilities and things of that nature. That's what this is spurring a full economic revitalization, redevelopment of our city.
Do you think that Cook announcement, which I thought was very interesting, that they're putting a manufacturing plant, hiring people, jobs in the Meadows area? Do you think that decision, that investment, will be maybe spur additional development in that area, and again along the transit line?
I absolutely do. We're constantly tracking, our team is constantly tracking what's going on along that corridor. We work heavily with the city on those items. I mean, we have now worked with the city on a transit-oriented development policy that the city has put forth that looks at the investment along our transit line. There are businesses, we love them, but don't bring individuals that utilize transportation along our corridor. We love the gas stations and the storage buildings, but they can move out a couple of blocks away and not be on our transit line directly. But having hospitals, affordable housing, let's not forget that we're looking to make sure that affordable housing is at its highest peak, and mixed development. That all happens when transit investments are made.
Okay, the red line is complete. The purple line is next. This transit plan is moving forward. Give us the timeline and what's next, because I know there are some developments coming up very soon that will push the Indy Connect project forward.
We're so excited. We were just informed by the Federal Transit Administration, which is the FTA, that our final process of review is underway at this time, and that we should be signing our full funding grant agreement within the next 30 to 45 days. That will then allow Indigo to be able to release the request for proposal, or RFP, for the construction. As you know, this project is looking to be at least $168 million project, with over 50% of that money going towards infrastructure improvements. We hope to be able to have a contractor selected by the end of this year, so we can begin construction in the first to second quarter of next year. So very exciting.
You said, doing a little research for our conversation, Inez, I think you made the comment that you've been encouraged with the support you're getting from the feds, from the federal government in D.C. But there's been pushback, and it's been, out in the public from the State House, from lawmakers here. Some people, questioning the Indy Connect plan. Do you see that changing? Does that stand in the way? Could it potentially stand in the way for the continued rollout of Indy Connect?
That's a really tough question, and it's a really great question. I can't think about what some of the authors of those bills are going to, whether support us or continue to doubt the effectiveness of public transportation. But I would hope and pray that individuals who voted for this, which, they're pushing, well, I have 500 businesses, or I have 5,000 signatures. And we're the first to remind them that over 191,000 citizens of our community voted ecstatically to say yes. So let's keep with the era of democracy and let the voters' will stand. And, we're there to give the facts to all of our leaders there at the State House. And I think because we've been able to stick to the facts, we're still moving forward with our projects.
A lot going on at Indigo, not just with the Indy Connect mass transit initiative, but you've got a new headquarters in the works, the old Celadon side on the east side of Indianapolis. A number of things going on. Talk about kind of the momentum that you see even through the pandemic at Indigo.
Wow. Yeah. Indigo has been constantly acquiring properties. As you mentioned, we purchased the old Celadon facility on the east side. That will become our new headquarters, as well as where our new boardroom will be, and a state-of-the-art training facility for CDL training for drivers. And a new facility will be built for our bus operations. We will still be at our headquarters here on the west side at 1501 West Washington Street. So we will become a multi-facility organization. We've also purchased a couple of facilities to be able to charge our electric buses, and additionally have begun to acquire properties to look at park and ride facilities at some of our red line facilities as well. So, and a paratransit facility. How could I forget? We purchased a paratransit facility and we'll be moving our mobility care center into that facility and assessment. So while the pandemic may have slowed our ridership down, it has not slowed our zeal to continue to move forward with the Marion County transit plan.
You mentioned electric buses, and we see what's obviously underway in the automotive industry with the move to electric vehicles. Is that a similar path for transit organizations around the country? Will Indigo ultimately become, essentially all electric?
I think with technology evolving, I think the commitment from this organization is what we're going to say is that we're committed to zero emission. And because I'm a strong believer in not putting all your eggs in one basket, we saw what recently happened in Texas with the massive storm that went through there and shut down the electric grid system. So now we're taking a step back and we're thinking, should we put everything into electric, or should we have some hydrogen fuel cell vehicles in the mix? All zero emission that still meets the goal that we're moving towards, but should we have a 100% electric fleet?
What another thing I saw that I found interesting in all of the different initiatives you have going on, microtransit. What is microtransit?
Wow, microtransit. I tell people I'm an OTG, and they say, "What is that?" I'm an old transit girl. So back in the day, we used to have what was called dial-a-ride. And buses little teeny buses, like the paratransit buses, you would call up and they would come to your house and pick you up or come to a corner. That's all it is. It's just a reinventing. It's the new word of our generation now, microtransit. So what it's going to do, we're going to look in areas where there's not heavy density. And we're going to be able to take those vehicles, the smaller vehicles, and go into neighborhoods more and have a little bit more flexibility, but those buses will connect to our main spines of our service and so we think we'll be able to serve more people because, as we all know, our infrastructure of sidewalks is not readily in all neighborhoods. So the microtransit removes that architectural barrier by being able to get down to your neighborhood to pick you up, to take you where you want to go. It can also be able to take you. A lot of people shop right in their neighborhood, but sometimes because of the way our bus routes are done, you've got to go downtown and, that's a 30-minute ride. And then you got to go right back up if you could have done a straight line straight across. So the microtransits will be able to do that a lot easier.
Very good. Well, Inez, we are at the point now in the podcast where we call it the 2-minute drill. Usually it doesn't last 2 minutes, or maybe it's a little more, a little less, but are you up for it?
I'm up for it. Let's go for it.
Okay. All right. What is your favorite way to relax?
Singing.
Oh, singing. Well, I'm hoping a little later in the podcast here, we might get a little sample of that too. How about your favorite snack?
Oh my God. Don't do that to me. Pizza.
Oh, pizza. Good. Okay. Do you have a pet peeve?
I don't know if I have a pet peeve. That's a hard one for me.
Okay.
Pet peeve.
I'll put you down as no pet peeve.
Yeah.
You love music. Do you have a favorite artist?
Oh, now that's tough because you start naming people, but I'm very eclectic. I love CeCe Winans, Yolanda Adams, Gladys Knight. But I also have bands that I love from all genres, Pavarotti. I just love all types of music. So.
Oh, very good. Very good. Oceans or mountains?
Oceans.
Oceans. Okay. How about, I'm sure you have had a number of mentors. Is there one or maybe a couple of mentors most important to you?
Oh, wow. Dr. Beverly Scott. I worked with her in Atlanta for MARTA. And then my last boss, how could I not include her as one of my mentors, Nuria Fernandez, who is the current FDA administrator.
Very good. Did you have a favorite teacher along the way?
Oh, man. I had two. Mr. Kavakis, who was my science teacher in middle school in New York City. who taught me how to dissect everything, not trying to gross people out, from a frog all the way to a monkey. So we were in an advanced science class. And then Mrs. Lerner at my music and arts school, high school, she was my English teacher who helped me have an appreciation for literature like Shakespeare, and she brought those characters to life in her classroom.
Pretty good. Okay. Final question. If you could have that ultimate dinner with three guests, an ultimate meal, who would the three guests be that you would invite to that dinner table?
Michelle Obama, Maya Angelou, and Oprah Winfrey.
Wow. Now that would be a power table. I'm here to tell you. So very good. You've passed Inez the 2-minute drill with flying colors. And there is much more to come when we return. Inez Evans, the early years, a woman of many talents, a bowler, a singer, and a lot more. That's when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
The Healthiest Employers Award program is now open to companies of all sizes in the state of Indiana. We have created a community of wellness leaders from across the country dedicated to cultivating a more proactive approach to employee health and well-being. To nominate your organization, visit us online at healthiestemployers.com. Healthiest Employers, the nation's leading corporate well-being award.
Welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC. My guest this week, Inez Evans, the president and CEO of Indigo. And Inez, I know you bill yourself as a native of Texas, I think, but you were actually born in Prince George, Virginia, at an Army base. The military, very much a part of your family tree, right?
That is correct. My father was a career military man, served 2 tours in Vietnam, did Korea, Germany. I'm a quote unquote military brat.
Yeah, well, and you served in the military yourself. Talk about your military experience and what that meant to you, how that helped to shape you.
Well, the military is it's just part of our DNA. Like, my father served. I have too many uncles to count that served. I have a brother who was a Marine, and at one point in time, I was in the Navy. My father was in the Army. My uncle was in the Air Force. And I had we represented every branch of the military except for the Coast Guard, and we were all active duty at one time. And so that was really special. My grandmother had a picture of all of us on her wall, just showing that how we were all representing. So it's helped to instill discipline in me. There's a code that you live by in the military, and it's about service to your country. It makes you selfless instead of selfish, because you give of yourself at all times. And that's what it instilled upon me. And so it's just a natural transition in my mind that I do what I do for Indigo and for transportation overall, because it's just an extenuation of being a person of service.
Yeah. What was growing up like? It's a military family. Sounds like you probably moved a lot, right?
Well, my mother and my father, they separated at an early age. So I only got to see my father when he flew in, which, we tried to make those at special times. But that's what I recall of him being military. And then, my birth mother and I, we had a stormy relationship. And I ended up moving to live with my family in Virginia with my aunt, who I call Auntie Ma, or Mama D. She is my heart. And she was the one who kind of helped ground me in faith and, gave me that love and nurturing and that I needed at that time of growing up. And she's still my rock.
Well, you ended up in New York too. One of your stops in New York, you went to art and music school. How did that transpire? You obviously have a passion for the arts, for music, for singing. What was school like in New York?
Music in Art High School, if anybody remembers the movie Fame or the TV series, that's the school. And yes, it was just as crazy like that, with people constantly practicing instruments and singing in the cafeteria and through the hallways. It really just, I mean, I wanted to be a singer. That's what I wanted. That's why you go there. Matter of fact, and I'll tell a secret, I signed my papers to go to the school. My mother never signed them because she wanted me to
Really?
she wanted me to go to the science school, and I didn't want to do science anymore. I wanted to sing. I wanted to nurture my creative side. So yeah, that's a secret. Y'all can't revoke my license
So
now.
so you snuck in there. You got in there. How did you? What was it like? Did you? Was it? Did you love it? Was it a passion then? And going to school and in training as a singer, that was something that was really a cool thing to do.
It was. It is a passion. When you're there, they nurture your internal side of you, so what you bring externally will shine even brighter. And so they train you in classical music mostly. English is the hardest language to sing, so they teach you in German, French, and Italian, which I can't speak those languages, but I can sing them. And they give you gospel and jazz, and they nurture drama. I had a concept that I was going to become an actor, actress, and be on the stage. But the military had a higher calling on me, and that's where I served.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So when did you come to understand that that wasn't going to be the career? It was the military that kind of intervened, if you will.
Yeah, I think for me, my birth mother was not very supportive of my singing career. I mean, you need to have folks who are going to be those cheerleaders for you. And so my father and I talked about it at 17. I decided to finish school a year early and join the military and pursue that career. But, you got to have those folks who are going to be in your corner, who are being your cheerleader, whatever career you decide to take on. But I mean, I still sing on the side and, for people. And so I'm, still blessed.
Yeah. Okay. I told you I was gonna put you on the spot here. I was going to ask you if you still sing. You obviously do. Can you give us just a little sample?
A little sample. Okay. Let me step back from the mic a little bit. This is Italian opera. So. Is that enough?
That is outstanding. So to do that, obviously, you just can't, roll out of bed and do it. You've got to continue to train and do things to allow you to sing.
Yes, I mean, I used to be a much higher soprano than what I just sang. So my teacher for music in our high school, she'd probably pop me on the back of my head because I wasn't sitting properly. My enunciations were off, and it is, your vocal cords are a muscle and you need to exercise them every day. So just like you train for the Olympics or anything like that, you need to continuously train. So if I'm working towards a show or something like that, I go through a totally different regime. I change my diet. I vocalize for 2 to 3 hours a day. I have to drink tons of water. So you just go through it.
Yeah. So you began your transit career as a a call center rep in the early 90s. You didn't have a college degree, right? But you obviously, maybe it's that discipline from the military. You had that discipline to earn your undergraduate degree and ultimately an MBA. Talk about that process and kind of what led you or what really drove you through those years.
Well, yeah, I started as a customer service rep, and I kept looking at the next ring on the ladder and said, oh, what do you do? And what do you do? And finally, when I got into management, I had a wise gentleman who worked for Capital Metro, Fred Gillum, who talked to me and said, you make really good money. He said, but you don't have a degree. And I said, well, why do I need a degree? I make good money. He said, do you want to keep it? Do you want to keep it? And do you want to make more? And he says, you're going to come to a period in your life when people are going to want to see a piece of paper on the wall. They're not going to hand you multi-million dollar corporations to run if they feel that you don't have the education behind you to do that. So I took that to heart and used went to school, and they gave you so many credits for your military experience. Thank you, military. I love that. Took courses at Indiana Wesleyan University, great university, and proceeded to go to night school, weekends, you name it, online courses. So I wasn't a traditional learner because I was an adult learner. I was a single mother. I still had to work and take care of my boys. And it took me longer to do it because it wasn't traditional schooling. But I would tell anybody who is out there who's scared to do it, just keep taking a class. Just one class at a time. My team members at my former locations, I will tell you, became some of my loudest cheerleaders. They put up boards, and every time I would finish a class, they would mark it off the board and cheer and post my grades and all kinds of stuff. So I had my own little cheering squad.
Well, you rose through the ranks, and your last stop before Indianapolis was a big position, Chief Operating Officer at the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, California. 1,600 employees, 700 vehicles, 43 million customers. Well, I assume that was probably a turning point in your career with that big job.
Oh, it was, and talk about, to be totally honest, being terrified. I went out there to be the chief of staff, and the COO got promoted from VTA to become the CEO of another transit agency. And Nuria Fernandez, the CEO, brought me into the office, and she said, Mike's leaving to go to Oakland. I'm going to appoint you as the COO. And I said, what?
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. I didn't come here for that. Because I knew what it meant. You were never going to sleep again for the next 5 years.
Right. Yeah.
Because, running trains, I had never run a railroad. And so I had to learn very quickly about trains and what you needed for that. And there are regulations in California that astound you by an agency called CPUC. I mean, so there was a lot. But she saw in me what I didn't want to see. And I have to thank her for that, because I wouldn't be here today without her pushing me to own up to what I was capable of doing.
What interested you, or what did you think when you got the call from Indianapolis with the top spot at Indy? Or how did that all transpire, and why was it something you were really interested in?
Well, matter of fact, I keep mentioning her name, but Nuria Fernandez, my boss, got a call from the recruiter who was doing the search here for Indianapolis, and called her and said, hey, do you have anybody who would be interested in applying? We're looking. And she said, my COO would be perfect. And so she texted me and said, hey, come see me. I want to talk to you. And so we talked about it. And she says, you have my full support. I would hate to lose you, but it's time for the bird to leave the nest. And so, when you have your boss's seal of approval, who's helping you along the way, what better steps can you take? But why not Indianapolis? I had visited this great city before when they had the APTA conference here, loved it, thought it was one of the best design cities I had ever been to. So walkable, the downtown, so clean. And when I came here, it was just everything that I imagined. And the folks here are so nice. So it's just so welcoming. It was almost like coming home, if that makes sense. And so when I got the call, I'm going to be vulnerable here for a minute. When they actually told me the day of the interview, they called me, and my phone was on silent because I just finished the interview. So I changed clothes, put on my jeans. I'm ready to go back, get on the plane. And so I looked, something said, check your phone. And I look at my phone, I've missed 3 calls, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And so I called them back, and they said, are you still here? And I'm like, yeah, I was in the bathroom changing. And so they bring me back up to the room, and they said, the board would love to offer you the position of the CEO. And I cried, because it was this everything that you worked for and prayed for, God delivered. So yeah, it was a special moment.
That moment, yeah, that moment, all the work, all the trials and tribulations, kind of all came to you at one time in that moment.
Yes, exactly. So it was, overwhelmingly joy. And then you start the realization of what's to happen, that you don't have that buffer anymore. You don't have that CEO to go to anymore and say, I didn't make that decision. You're now it. So that
Right.
realization was like, oh my goodness, be careful what you asked for. But I will tell you, the employees here at Indigo, the board of directors, and the community of Indianapolis have just been fabulous. I do not regret this decision one bit, and just been so excited by the ride that we've been on so far.
What's next? You have a lot of things going on at Indigo. We talked about the new headquarters, obviously the expansion of mass transit here. As you look at the next 5-10 years and maybe beyond, what is your vision for Indigo?
So we're just constantly evolving. Right now, Gary, we're the purple line, as I mentioned earlier, we're pushing that out. The next line, the last leg of the three-legged stool, will be the blue line. And we're hoping to finish up that design by this time next year to be able to present that to the FTA so we can go out for that. And then moving more of our microtransit service out within the community to push to be able to serve all of Marion County, which is our commitment to do so, to provide some level of service to all the citizens that want to use mass transit. So we're about breaking down barriers, and we're about focusing on moving our city.
Indigo President and CEO Inez Evans. Inez, it's been a real treat to have you on the podcast. You're a fascinating person. You've got a big job, a high-profile job that's going to continue to be that in the months and years ahead. Really appreciate you taking the time, Inez. Best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Inez Evans, the Indigo President and CEO. We want to thank you for joining us on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast as well. It's a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can catch all of the episodes of the Business and Beyond podcast and business news from around the state of Indiana 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.